Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Teutonic Tangents. Today's episode, we're actually going to be discussing part two. We had a brief interruption on part one, and we just kind of wanted to make sure we wrap that up while it's fresh in our minds. Part two, there's some really, really good topics that Tyler had going on. It was fucking awesome. Um, I think we were really getting in deep there. And Overall, just we had stuff that came up, and we wanted to make sure we continue that and fulfill that for part two. Um, but yeah, we hope you guys are doing good. We're really excited to kind of announce on this one. It's all random, like we said. We're gonna whenever Tyler, he's the expert at editing everything, so I'm sure his expertise he will not fail at all. But like we
Expertise.
discussed in expertise, yes, indeed, baby, yeah. So um, we're trying to make sure like they're pretty structured and stuff. Um, but the thing we want to talk about real quick is how excited we are because we were just talking about before we started recording is how pretty solid for just one video up right now. Um, for whoever that was who subscribed and liked the video, it's fucking awesome. You know, like 9 days. You said it was 9 days ago, and we got
Nine
like
days.
wow. So good amount of views and yeah, we're pretty excited, and we hope that continue to get better too. Continue to get more like support around it, more people like that. It helps, shit, as we get more organized titles and more things that are designated for whoever out there. We're also gonna be working on a fuck ton of gaming videos and stuff as well. But today's topic though, is gonna be part two of Tyler. Take it away.
Part two of Tyler, take it away. Well, I don't
Tyler,
know
take it
what
away.
the previous episode, the part one, I don't know what it's going to be called. I don't think we discussed that. I'll figure that out sometime later, but this is just part two of whatever the fuck that was. And in the last episode, where we left off, we were talking about, I got my notes here pulled up. Doubt, deconstruction, and rebuilding is the topic that we left off on. And the last question that we answered was, have you ever questioned what you believe? We're not gonna get into that one. We already discussed that. We towards the end of the episode, that's where we left off at. So the next one that we have, I think is pretty interesting. Is doubt dangerous or necessary? And why? I'd like to get your thoughts on that,
Mm.
and then I'll give my thoughts on it.
Stout, dangerous, or necessary.
Yeah, or both. I
Okay,
think it's both.
or both. Stout. Well, I think, man, I got my mind ready for this, but it's like really getting back into the deep shit here. Damn. Uh, I would say definitely, as a human emotion, I mean, doubt is of course like necessary. I think it's good when somebody can have some doubt. I think getting there's a balance. Whenever you have strength, but there's like, I don't know, things that pop in. I think it can be a good thing. Um, but I do think because the other part you said, is it dangerous?
Yeah, is doubt dangerous or necessary?
So with necessity, I mean, honestly, I want to say really might. Usually, I'm more of an optimist, but I would have to say, I think having like doubts, like constant doubt. I think that's kind of a dangerous thing in terms of like if you're in a faith, like you're a really amazing example, man, because like you went from uh, paganism, like you went hard and like you studied everything, you studied the rites and all that and the prayers, and you put a lot of effort into it, and you took it very seriously, and but you had doubts, and you would openly express them. I remember a lot of times in our kindred in our group, you openly expressed how you had doubts, and what did you do about it? You understood that you had doubts, and you've said in a previous episode how whenever you had doubts and you weren't feeling anything from the gods or the ancestors or any spirits, you realized what that meant, and you switched, and I think now you get more empowering, you get more empowered out of your conversion of faith. You know, you actually feel something, and so it's I think it's why like you took that doubt. In a way, I think it's kind of both a necessity because it kind of shows like, are you on the right path? Is this something? Because at the end of the day, you know, we're all trying to reach the divine. Like, you know, there is no one true religion. We're all trying to reach the divine in our own stories. You know, like one way or another, things kind of it's just everything around the world, whether it's Christianity, how it goes back to Abrahamic religions and stuff. They just kind of do things, you know, differently. But really, at the end of the day, you're trying to reach the divine. You want something from the divine, and you got to give something to the divine. It's like a gift cycle. So, I think in a way, but I think it's dangerous when it's like you're just still trying to hang in there, and you're like, no, no, I'm doing this because this is cool, or this is like a culture, you know, and you know, it's just like a trend. Like I just want to be cool. I want this to be my label. So then you just keep doing it. I feel like that's when doubt gets dangerous, you know? It's kind of just like something that's because then you're not really getting anything out of it. You're not giving to the divine. You're almost like tainting the religion, the culture. You know, it's not something your ancestors, you know, would want. They'd rather you make them proud, you know, and do something that I don't know is kind of noteworthy. You know what I mean? It's like so. I think that's my take. I think it's kind of a little bit of both because obviously for you it worked and it was a necessity for you because it helped you find the true faith that worked for you and receiving the divine and giving back to the divine. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
I think that doubt is dangerous and a necessity for basically the same reason. It's dangerous because, well, let's start with the necessity part because I feel like I could do that one a little bit better right now. Doubt is necessary because I lost my train of thought mid sentence.
Oh fuck! Hey, it's a
But
deep one. It took me a damn minute too.
okay, let's just start with the dangerous part.
To be fair, yeah. To be fair, we've been out of this for a few days now. Usually we were like recording, but even I'm like, oh fuck, like, it feels weird.
So, is doubt dangerous? Yes, it is, and I'll use faith as an example again because this episode and the last episode seems like they're probably going to be centered around that a little bit. I'd say it's dangerous because if you have too much doubt, then there's some people that are going to be bouncing back and forth from religion to religion, from different faith to faith, worshiping different gods. They're not going to know what to do. They're going to get overwhelmed. They're not going to know what to believe in. And eventually, it's just a very destructive path that it leads down.
Absolutely, man. That's spot on.
So that's why I would say doubt is dangerous. As far as why it is necessary, I would say it's not bad to have certain questions about your faith. Like whenever I was still pagan, I was also true. I had doubts, I had questions, I addressed those questions. But I feel like it's necessary in a way where it can make your faith stronger in what you believe in. It can help strengthen your faith.
Yeah,
I know I'm doing a bad job at explaining,
absolutely.
but
No, no, you're doing good. I want to make sure you're finished because that was actually that was really good. I like the optimistic view as well because I think seeing doubt is like an optimistic thing. You know, like everybody has like certain doubts. You know, like um, whether it's in their faith or like their culture and what they do. You know, and I think definitely is. It's like it can be a positive thing because it makes you stronger when you have those doubts. You think of those questions. You know, you think of like, oh, is this the right thing or what does this go back to? Like, what are these? What is the reason why I do this certain thing? Like, you know, in like the certain tradition of, you know, I don't know, an example like certain way you do an offering or a bloat or something like. Why do we do it this way? You know, is like, as it's just some like superstitious thing, you know, or is this like legit? And then you research it and you see like, oh shit, like certain people were doing this for thousands of years before, even anything was written down. And they see like archaeological evidence of shit. I don't know. There's like so many examples, and with that train, like that mind, or train of thought, like how you're thinking, where it's good to have doubt. It makes you stronger. It makes you question things, and even the divine. If like they kind of like that too, and they respect that because they're like, oh, he's asking questions, he's wondering about things too, and that's even Woden is a great example of that in terms of the Germanic religion. He very curious God. He even he asked questions and he like explored and things like that. And so I mean, there's a lot of examples where it's yeah. I think absolutely I agree with you. Like doubt strengthens you if you do something about it. You don't just keep doing it. You don't just label it as your title. It's important not just to be like, oh, well, I'm pagan or Mouse True or something, just because it's cool or it's a trend. But you actually really study it and you ask those questions that make you doubt, and then you have an answer whenever somebody asks you certain questions, and then that prevents from, like you said, bouncing from religion to religion. There's a good example of that too, where it's like the '90s and 2000s, early 2000s, being Celtic, like everybody was obsessed with that. Like everybody was like, "Oh fuck yeah!" Even before my father passed, he the whole thing with him. Even though he was a Perry, like I've done all the family tree stuff, all of our surnames, pretty much majority Germanic, and then even like DNA, like our paternal line literally goes back, like our haplogroups and everything. It's basically in England, but we do have some connections to Ireland. But he was always super
Regardless of the
super set
reason.
on like no, I'm fucking Irish, I'm a Perry, I'm Irish, and it's just because it was like yeah, it's fucking funny. Yeah, it was just how it was, and a lot of people were like, oh, they wanted to be Celtic, like Braveheart came out, all these things came out, and it was just huge. And then no shit, fucking what 2013 or some shit, the TV show Vikings came out, and then everybody was like, oh fuck yeah, I'm gonna wear a Mjolnir and I'm gonna be a Viking. I'm Germanic, even though even though a lot of people, in fact, were not purely Scandinavian. Most people were like fucking. Most people, especially in America, would have been the opposite side of it. They would have been Anglo-Saxons, like myself, defending from Viking incursions. So it's like, um, yeah, it's kind of funny. It's kind of so it's important not to be that though. And even myself, like my dad, he when the Vikings TV show came out, he kind of did similar shit. He wanted to grow his beard out a little bit more. He kind of did a little crazy shit. Wore a Mjolnir, and he became a pagan. And but I converted myself. I one day just looked up to the sky, and he bought me a Mjolnir from a medieval festival. And I just remember looking up to the sky, and I was like, "Oh, I want to give myself to the divine and to the gods." And I think the difference was he had a very surface level. So again, it's kind of like that trendy thing, to where like whenever he eventually was tested with things like going to prison or death, it's kind of like he I feel like he kind of had more of like he just saw it as like something fun. So when shit got real, it was kind of like when he was in prison or he was scared or he was just like stressed out, he converted back to Christianity. So for me, truly like I took what he kind of influenced on me, and I was like, oh, I really want to study more. And getting out of getting out of the army, I had a lot of time to do that, and I think really studying your roots, finding specifically what your culture goes back to in terms of any pagans out there. I, I think that's important. I think that kind of truly it's really important because I found out even in terms of like the Scandinavian religion, if you want to call it the Norse paganism, it's the same thing as Anglo-Saxon paganism or English paganism. Or even German or like purely Saxon paganism. It's just different names. It really is. A good example was like Tom Russell. He was saying in an interview, it's like people who say no, it's not the same religion. It's like, oh well, are you saying the word wolf and the word ulf are different? Like, are they like, do they mean something different? It's like, no, they don't. They both mean wolf. It's just like just slightly different. Scandinavian languages drop the W for like everything, so it is the same thing. Even before the Vikings started talking about like obsessing over Odin, and how he hung from a tree, the Anglo-Saxons, they were talking about the same stuff. They talked about a hanged god who had twin ravens, and they called him Woden. It's the same stuff. So I think for me though, it's important to researching your ancestry for any pagans out there and looking at what ties you to certain lands and doing that. It really helps with your strength too in terms of that. You don't want to have a surface level understanding, and then like Tyler said, whenever people start asking questions and you start doubting, you start jumping from religion to religion. With you, Tyler, you had a very respectful and mature, um, just a very mature way of going about it because you just understood simply like the Germanic gods. They weren't like you even said too. It was really fascinating. You said at one point you did feel them, and then for a long, long time you didn't feel them. And I think that's really important because the whole point is to receive some kind of strength and blessings from the divine of any kind, ancestor spirits or gods. And you had a very mature and respectful way of going about it. You followed a different path to reach the divine. And that's a good example of when people should realize, okay, this doubt is like staying around. I don't feel anything. Do something about it, and you have. So yeah, a bit of a like again, like in the name, Teutonic tangent is a bit of a tangent going on, but I think it was a really good one to really just dive into. Just that way people understand like why it's important to really research, a lot of stuff. So yeah.
So that tangent isn't completely off topic either. It kind of leads into the next question, which I can start with this one if you want me to, just before I lose my train of thought again because I'm having memory problems. But what made your faith stronger? I feel like that kind of ties in pretty well with what you was talking about. And for me personally, like you said earlier, whenever I was a pagan, I was having some doubts and stuff. Towards the beginning, I did feel a divine connection, and then over time, like over the past year or so, it just kind of dwindled away. I wasn't really hearing anything from the gods or feeling anything. That's why I converted back to Christianity. But if I had to pick one specific event that made my faith stronger, I would say, let me preface this by saying that whenever I was a pagan and I was having those doubts and I was telling you I wasn't feeling the same connection I did before with the gods and everything, I did go through a little bit of an episode there where I didn't know if there were any gods. Like I was starting to doubt that too, like whether religion was even, I don't know what the right word I'm trying to think of is, but basically I was trying to figure out if atheists were right and there is no God. But this didn't really strengthen my faith in Christianity, but it did give me faith that there is some kind of divine power out there, whether it's the Christian God or the Norse gods or whatever. A few months ago, I had a situation where I talked about this in the last episode in part one, where I should have died. There was no reason for me to still be alive. The doctors couldn't explain it. Nobody could come up with a logical explanation for it. And they said that it was a miracle that I was still breathing, that I shouldn't be here. And the fact that nobody could explain that, and the fact that I'm still here after that, like I said, it didn't really strengthen my faith in Christianity specifically, but it did give me faith that there is some kind of God out there. Because, I mean, what else are you supposed to think whenever something like that happens and everybody tells you that you should be dead, but you're not?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I feel like that was the
Absolutely.
biggest thing for me.
Yeah, it's fucking very beautiful. Um, I think yours will be a much stronger um, story, and experience that really shapes that. Because I think that's a really good one before I even dare touch into mine. I think like for years, I think for people out there, of all religions and cultures, or people who don't have a religion, they're agnostic or they are atheists. I think respectfully to atheists, but also like, yeah, I mean, just respectfully to atheists out there. I think really think on maybe, or maybe they'll shut us down in the comments and they'll be like, no, I have. But I think if you've really experienced certain life experiences, close calls, or you've been around, especially when you're in groups. I think even just a couple people, and when you start to do stuff like out in the woods or even just like in a building somewhere, and you just start praying together, you just start doing things as a group. There's a lot of strength to it. It makes you feel a certain way. You're like, oh shit, like this is pretty cool. There's something here, because there's more benefits when you do things like that. But I think like a lesson for anybody out there. I think Tyler, for your actual like near death, it's kind of like that's pretty much it's a very much big deal. It's like really important for people to realize like there's so many things out there you can experience that you can't really explain other than divinity. There's something out there, and um, for there to even be a world when you think about it. I mean, I think just because of how advanced we gotten with technology, it does create like a bridge or like a barrier, like a block between the divine and man. Because you know, whereas before, like it really when you're connected to the world more without technology, it does have you thinking where it's like, how could there not be any kind of divine being with the world like this and all these really meticulous little things that you can see in the world? It's kind of like this is so much like artistic stuff that's even in the world. You know what I mean? Just in nature, and it's just like something, something forged that, something just created it. So I mean, but yeah, experiences like that, like miracles, just crazy stuff. Where it's just like how, uh, like luck, or like luck, or just something being bestowed onto you that you can't explain, and shit happens like every day. Crazy shit people can't explain. So
I will say I don't really understand the atheist argument. Like, I'll get into this without saying any one specific religion is right because try to keep the respectful air about it. But it doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you talk to an atheist and they try to explain why there's no God or no gods, they say the universe started with the Big Bang. But that doesn't answer anything because if you think about it, what caused the Big Bang? It had to be something.
yeah, it's just to them, it's just poof. It's like like magic in a sense, and even then, it's like very science people like that when you're like, well, no, not even science. It's like just very confusing trying to have an argument with them because you ask them what's the why,
I mean, there
like
has to be
why
an
or
argument.
how. You ask it's just very yeah, it's just very basic question. It's just two little things like why and how. Like explain that,
I mean,
and there's nothing. Whereas like so many religions have an explanation for that. They have it like in their ancient text of why and how. Like there's something that's been recorded forever. And there's a lot of things too that's like really cool that like is backed up by archaeology. That's like pre-antiquity, like pre stuff being written down. Like you find things and it's like I don't know, it's just little inscriptions and crazy stuff that backs up like these stories that have been consistent and written down forever or like orally passed down. It's just so cool. But yeah, you try to talk to an atheist and they say no, this happened because of some scientific theory, and
I mean, the
they can't
scientific
give you the
theory,
why or how.
it only goes back to the Big Bang, and whenever you try to ask them what caused the Big Bang, they can't give you a logical answer for it. Most of the time, they'll say like, "Oh, it's an infinite regression of events, it's an infinite chain of events that keeps going back." But you got to think about it logically. That doesn't make any sense. You can't have an infinite chain of events that goes back forever because it has to start somewhere.
Yeah,
And whatever
exactly.
causes that chain of events, because everything is cause and effect, whatever causes that has to exist outside of space and time. And that's what I believe what we refer to as God or gods or some sort of deity that exists
Hmm.
outside of time and space. So
Yeah.
I don't really understand their argument.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, that's why, yeah, I was gonna go into something. That's why I was like respectfully to atheists, but I was like also, and then I dropped it. But to be fair, yeah, respectfully to atheists, but also non-respectfully. It's also like, but it's like really, like it's
And then there's me.
um,
I didn't
I feel like
bother
even
with the respect part with that.
yeah, but but no, for real. I mean, that's what I was thinking too. You just said it for both of us, because I'm like, you know, just one thing being agnostic or being unsure, and just understanding there is divine, but you're finding your path. But I don't know, just a thing that's been around forever. Even not the most religious people, they have a concept of it, and it's just like you choose to be an atheist, and they believe like, oh yeah, it's just blackness. There's just nothing after. It's
It doesn't make any sense. There
just
has to be
nothing. There's
something.
no. Yeah, there's so many crazy things with even like reincarnation or like proof of like somebody had knowledge of like this past life. It was like a kid of some story. I think my lady, she told me about it, but it was like this kid. Um, he was like really young. Was like, I don't know. I don't even know, like 5 or 6 or something. I wouldn't know, but he like came up to his mom or something. He was like he I don't know. He said something where it was like it feels like he used to be a chef or something like that, or some like really important chef. It was something like that. Maybe I got the work and tell wrong, but overall the story goes on. He's saying like, "Oh, I just have these memories that I did something like this," and then she like went back into like a family tree, like asked around in her family, and it was like a couple generations back. It was like some old man was in their family going back, was like that exact role, like that had that exact job, or they were like some chef in this country or something like that. I don't know. And he literally just could feel it. He said like, yeah, I just keep like having these memories and stuff, like this feels familiar, and like I keep remembering this or something. I was doing this, and then sure enough, like in a past life, if you will, it's like he was doing that exact thing. There's like crazy stories like that where people just like have these weird memories, or even like genetic memory. It's like a thing. Like even science, they can. It's even in science. It's like a real thing. It's like genetic memory. You go, you're somewhere, that feels like home, and it's like it's weird. It's like in your memory and shit, and it's why even people when they moved even from Europe to America, it was a lot of people like take for example like the Highland clearances. When a lot of the Scots were pushed out by the English, um, or like a lot of the Highlanders specifically, even here in North Carolina where I'm at, the coolest thing is going to Grandfather Mountain, and where you see all these mountains and the highlands and stuff, and it feels a lot like home. And sure enough, Highlanders left where they couldn't practice their culture, and they came to the very place that's familiar, and that's in the highlands of North Carolina and or throughout where the Appalachian Mountains are. So it's really cool. There's a lot of things that are familiar, like people kind of get depressed or they go mad whenever they're not really in a place exactly that feels like home. And there's genetic memory that kind of backs that up, It's like they, you feel more at home from typically where your ancestry's from, a lot of times. So yeah, there's too many experiences that prove that there is divine for sure.
Hmm. I'm looking through trying to figure out the next topic to cover. There's a couple good ones, but a couple of them might get a little uh, defensive.
Okay, okay.
So we can either keep it belief based, or we can. Well, let's start here. Traditions versus progress. Are traditions anchors or are they chains?
Anchors or chains? I think I think they're anchors. I think there's a cool saying though, as the saying goes. Uh is It's like like keeping up tradition. It's like it's the preservation of fire, not the worship of ashes. It's like hopefully I know I got that part right, but I don't know who said it, but it's literally saying like, you know, when something's kind of there's like things missing, and you're trying to like something that was destroyed a long time ago, say like paganism, for instance, and you're trying to worship something that's completely like dead, like worship like with the last point you left off, it's kind of like, and you're just trying to add stuff or like do things in it. It's like it's not a good way to go about it. But if you at least have, like the anchor reference, like if you're kind of anchored into what is known, and there's like the traditions and all that, the things that have been practiced continually, and you keep it at least respectful to how the things you maybe do add or like switch up here and there, but you don't just completely change it. um, that's when you get successful connection to the divine in terms of like how to properly do the gift cycle and do things like this. And you just simply just do it over and over again. That's part of tradition. You just keep doing the same shit over and over again. So that way nothing can corrupt the cycle. Because then if you start doing it differently every time, then, you can corrupt the cycle. You don't get a proper connection to the divine. And, but I don't think they're chains unless somebody lets them be chains. You know what I mean? Like it's like that preservation of the fire, not worship of ashes kind of shit. You're not trying to worship something that's dead, do something that's like kind of non-existent, but like make something new out of what is there, the tradition. And you kind of add to it respectfully, and very literally. Then they won't be chains. But yeah, if you do try to worship ashes, as that saying goes, then they will be chains. They're just gonna hold you back from simply connecting with the divine, even for Christianity. If you do, like as the Bible says, there's like tons of stuff. Like the Bible has a fuck ton, written in it. Like just examples all the time of them praying to the Lord or them uh, giving something to the Lord, sacrificing, and you kind of just do that. You keep it simple. You don't try to do weird shit or add to it. You get a way stronger benefit and stronger connection. So yeah, I think also an optimist point of view. I think tradition's definitely an anchor because it's what keeps your connection to the gods, to God, or to the ancestors alive. It keeps them strong.
I feel like I'm gonna be the pessimist here.
Oh shit. Okay, let's hear it.
So I agree to an extent that traditions are anchors, but I also agree that traditions are chains. And for any of the Christian listeners out there, I'm going to use the Bible as an example. So you can't go through everything in the Bible and try to live based on what it says word for word without contradicting yourself at some point. And I can explain that. The reason behind that is the Old Testament and the New Testament are two different things. The Old Testament is the old law, the New Testament is the new law. Like back in the Old Testament, whenever you sinned or you did something that was an act against God, you had to sacrifice an animal, a pure animal, to God to be forgiven for that sin. But we don't have
Mm.
to do that anymore because the New Testament is a new covenant. That's why Jesus died to fulfill that covenant, so we don't have to do it anymore. But I feel like it's traditions can be changed because, well, a lot of people will get too focused on what's in the Old Testament or the Old Covenant, and they'll try to live solely based off of that whenever it doesn't really apply as much anymore. Whenever they should be focusing on the New Testament.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think kind of paying attention to, but I think I understand the whole chains thing from that perspective with Christianity specifically for sure. Because if you, I could give an example, I guess, for Germanic law specifically in terms of the culture, like their laws and things. In the Germanic culture, back when it was the Germanic tribes, before they spread off, and then before they spread off and you started to get identity like big countries like Anglo-Saxon England or Scandinavia, the Vikings and all that. Before then, when there's the Germanic tribes there, um, the what Tacitus was seeing was like women who committed adultery or just men who did likewise the same thing. They had the bog there in Germania, the bog and all that, and there they would drown people in the bog for punishment. Like the bog was like for a lot of like crimes and all that. But then during the Viking Age, the Germanic people got a lot more lenient with that. Instead, if a woman was caught being an adulterer, they would shave her head and they would just flog her in the wood, like the streets, let her walk to the streets and they'd flog her. So then her head shaved. It's the mark of an adulterer. So I think it's a decent example where it's like things kind of change, like laws can change. So it's like if you're stuck going back to like the original laws and stuff. It's even like Valhalla, like Valhood. Like, Valhood was like, the concept of that is it's a lot younger than people think. Like that's like people don't really start talking about Valhood until, you know, the Viking Age basically, It's like you start to see that pop up more, and you start to see gods' roles, or like how important certain gods are changed, like all kinds of shit, like Ingvi or Ingvi Frey, or just in the Norse name for him, Freyr. Um, he, used to Ingvi Frey was extremely important, and was either was it Adam of Bremen, I believe. Whenever he went, it was either him or Saxo Grammaticus, but it was one of them. Whenever they went to Sweden and Uppsala, one of the biggest holy places for the Scandinavians, for the Norse religion. He noted like the three gods. It was like Ingvi, Frey, like Woden and Thunor, except it would have been Scandinavian names. And it said how important Ingvi Frey was because literally like the Ingvaeonis, which that's where like the Anglo-Saxons, like the Frisians, a lot of like West Germanic people descend from that, and even Englinga saga. It's in the first part of the name Ing. A lot of these different people, they all claim descent from Ing, which is Freyr, and you see that, but then you see how it kind of changes. Or a lot of times, certain cults they end up becoming more like, uh, like Woden or worshiping Odin, or something like that. So it's like things can kind of change. Like they had more interesting spiritual insights, maybe things kind of changed, and even Tacitus writes that they were worshiping a mother goddess, Nerthus. So it's kind of like this things even in the Germanic tribal era for the Germanic people. Like there's just these different people who had different priorities, and so it's yeah. I think easily certain things can become chains for sure because just like the Christian side of it, like trying to cling back to older laws, not looking towards what was written after. And then the same thing with anybody who's pagan out there, because I mean, obviously, like nobody's drowning somebody in a bog. I imagine or hope for
Yeah, sure as
for
hell
like their
hope not.
wife. Yeah, definitely not. But but it's just like an example where it's like even they were like, okay, it's a little brutal. So after the Germanic like tribal age kind of ended, you start to see towards like the Viking age going into that. It's like um they get more lenient now. They're like, okay, we'll just shave her head and flog her, and then so it's gonna have the mark of an adulterer who you know slept with somebody out of wedlock. So yeah, I definitely see your point of view. If you cling to one, like, you cling to something that's not really relevant anymore, you can you kind of miss out on a lot in terms of connecting with the divine.
The next two questions kind of go hand in hand, and they're kind of fun questions. I like these. So the first one is when should something be preserved, and the other one is when should something evolve.
When should something be preserved? When should something evolve? Yeah, it's really good too. It kind of tied into like our last one as well. Because yeah, it's really nice. Connects really nicely. But yeah, yeah. Which is something reserved. I think, yeah, it goes to like the certain tradition thing. I think a specific example is obviously the gift cycle. Every like culture, religion has it. Like there's something you have to give, and there's something you receive. Work you put in to that god or deity and stuff, and you receive things back. That's like tradition. It's like everywhere, like you see it like everywhere. It's like some kind of gift cycle or like prayer that's given, and that's like tradition. Even pre-antiquity, there's like you know you just kind of see stuff where it's clearly there's things that were in a ritual, like in burials and stuff, like things that were used for a burial context, like a giving context, like an offering context. I mean, and so that's like a big example. It's like tradition. Like you can't really, you know, cheat that exactly. I mean, there's like very few examples. I think some people would threaten the gods and trick the gods into getting something from them. Like I think Native Americans had a tradition. They try to shoot arrows into the sky and scare the gods and shout to like, get the gods to give them something. Um, but other than that, there's always been a gift cycle. There's always something. There's very few examples where people try to rebel against the divine. So that's tradition. You can't really get past that. You got to do that, or else you can say you can, but then it's like you're just not gonna have some of the best benefits. You do the cycle, you pray, you kneel, you understand how powerful that deity is, and you receive things. They hopefully answer your prayers. Um, but what should evolve? I think definitely like religious laws for sure. Like going back to what we were talking about, I think definitely because yeah, if you're stuck in being like ultra like harsh on some laws, like it can kind of have like a negative effect, especially if it's like somebody up the chain, like a religious leader or just somebody important, if they're like enforcing it, and like it's just like they're up there like enforcing like yeah you got to do this or whatever, and you see they're living slightly better, it can kind of lead to certain issues. So just kind of having, I think just things like that evolve a lot. Like Christianity evolve, like laws change, and then even in different Indo-European religions, like that changed too. Just things change, like understanding that deities, like certain deities and their roles. Another example is like Tyr or Tyr in Norse. Um, he was a very important god, like before the Viking Age, and then his roles started to switch, and that's when you start to get Woden, the All Father. And it's just like things change a lot, so that's when you should let things evolve for sure. Don't be stuck way back. Like understanding people evolve, religion evolves.
The bad news is I don't think I have anything to add to that. Because that was pretty much covered everything that I would have said about it.
Yeah, I mean, once you said what you said
Uh,
earlier, it was like how there's chains. I was like, yeah, it's true. Things can be chains because there's like pretty harsh shit back then.
okay, since this is a part two, and it doesn't have to be a full length episode like the other ones, I'm thinking we can do one more question. This I apologize because it's another deep question, but I feel like it's a good one. And I'll go ahead
Yeah,
and
let's do
answer
it.
it first if you want me to. That way you get a moment to sort of think about it. 'Cause it is a pretty deep question. The question is, what do we actually want our lives to mean? What do you want to accomplish in your life? So, for me personally, pagan, Christian, Hindu, it doesn't matter. I'm a Christian now, but religion doesn't matter for this. For my answer, my answer is what I want my life to mean, what I want to accomplish in my life is to, how do I say this? Build a stronger relationship with the divine, whatever divine is out there. Like, I believe it's Jesus and his father, God, now, but so my goal would be to get as close to God as possible and to understand as much as I can about him and to grow more in a relationship with him. Just basically getting as close to the divine as I can.
Nice. Yeah, I like that one. Same here, really. Like I think we are the generation really where you start to see like people waking up. Like not even just to like oh waking up to like a certain religion, but just waking up culturally. I mean, I feel like religion aside, even when we were in our kindred group, it was like we talked a lot about like we started to compare like our ancestries and things. So I think we started to talk about like where we're from more, and we thought about that deeper. And so I think too, I have like the same answer as you. Really, just I thank you. So I think that's a very like really important. So I think more people are waking up to that and like where they come from, and so I think that, and then yeah, definitely divine. Like I want that, but then I want like my family and stuff, because like I think a lot of people like in the last generation they kind of I don't know they failed I guess a lot in terms of I don't know just like providing like inheritance or like making sure that like we were better off. So I kind of want to have like a balance between getting really close to the divine for sure, just finding out as much as I can, um, and also just find out as much as I can about where I come from. But also making sure that like my family, like my children and like my wife have um like inheritance and stuff. Yeah, you. um like just have like an inheritance, like I think actually recently I actually just told my lady this yesterday, but like with when we were on a ride to uh just do errands and stuff, I was telling her how whenever I get back in the army, because you can do it for free, you can do your will for free. I want to redo my will and really make sure everything down to the little tiniest detail of like possessions like understood of where they go. So like for me what's important is like what I'm buried with, and then what's like left for her, like every little thing for her and for my daughter and all my children in the future. So that way, like nobody can try to take advantage of that whenever I'm gone. And but so for me too, like starting certain practices like that, hopefully somebody can see like, oh wow, like he did something that was very like Indo-European or something that was like a part of like the culture going back, and that's like being buried with stuff that was practical to you. So obviously, like people get this understanding, but like if you really like, which I haven't yet, but I've like just seen from a lot of people who do study metaphysics, like they when they share that information that they're like taught and stuff, it's like people have this thought where it's like say for like Valhalla kind of bros where they're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like Valhalla, like we're gonna go there and everything's gonna be like mead halls and old looking and it's gonna be so cool. But in reality, like if you use an example, like do you think people in the Germanic tribal age before there was like crazy big mead halls, do you think they imagined like mead halls in their afterlife? Like no, they probably imagined something to what was in their age. So it's like why should we do the same? It's gonna be basically like what you see around you, that you're used to, and that's gonna be your afterlife. Like you're gonna see people that are, still dressed like you, and like for weapons that people bring to the afterlife, it's like they're gonna have obviously something that's of the modern age. It might sound silly, but it's true. That's why like I want to be buried with weapons of this age. Like leave plenty of weapons for my family, but like be buried with like guns, um, blades and stuff, like all kinds of practical stuff. So I think people gotta get that out of their head. Like it's not gonna be like, oh, you die for any pagans out there. Hopefully we don't attract too many cringe pagans, but like it's like yeah, they're gonna go nuts. But I think that's super important. Like your afterlife isn't just gonna be mead halls and fucking Viking ships. It's you gotta understand like paganism is very much like it's attached to the land. It's attached to like your surroundings. So like you're gonna see a lot of like old ancestors, I'm sure, but it's like it's gonna be really tied to like your kin, people you knew in life, and you're gonna be reunited with them, and you're gonna see a lot of things that are familiar. So that's kind of like that's like metaphysics, it's like really like what people are experiencing when they pass. So um, very huge like tangent going off, but like I think it's like really important. It's specifically like how deep I definitely want to get as an example for um, how much I want to learn. Like I really want to study that one day, like metaphysics, and truly understand like what each place can mean for me in the afterlife, and you know, and for me having that knowledge and being able to pass that down to like my children or to my lady or something, and just having something where it's like they can look back and like they're like, oh shit, like a whole family tree was done. Like now we don't have to do it. Like somebody finally did a family tree. It kind of goes back to how you and I talk about. It seems like we're kind of the generation that's starting it back up. So it's like it's super hard. Like it's tough because like we get like really minimal stories from our grandparents and stuff. So because it was like lost, like family trees and retaining things. So yeah, I definitely want to do the same as you. Get closer to divine, but want to be able to have something like written down or like something official. Like just like that family tree that's online, like that's going to be there forever. And that's like something that like my children and their children, they can just go in there and they can see everything going back. So, but yeah, I think so. Oh, you want to mute it? One second. I gotta mute it real quick so my lady can make some food in the microwave. One second. Sorry. Oh yeah, sorry. You can talk to answer that real quick while I'm muted, so you can elaborate.
But you didn't ask me anything.
Oh, I didn't ask you anything. Okay, then one second. Sorry. One second. Sorry. Was that?
I don't know what we're doing.
Going to the car real quick to get Lily's ABC's raviolis real quick. Microwave's still going, so by the time I get back, the microwave will be done. One second.
Ugh.